Several athletes and organizations have stepped up to support the victims of the tragic Bourbon Street attack on New Year's Day. Welcome to Davis Sports Report. Please hit the like button on your way in. Zion Williams, the New Orleans Pelicans forward, donated $100,000 to the Greater New Orleans Foundation's Tragedy Fund. His contribution has inspired other organizations and individuals to support the recovery efforts. Zion is no stranger to giving back in the New Orleans area.
Darren Rizzi expressing his condolences as these attacks hit very close to home for him.
It hits home with me personally because, I have 5 children between the ages of 17 and 26. And I could tell you early this morning, the first thing I thought of was my own son was out last night for New Year's Eve in this community. This hits home. This entire community has our entire organization behind them 100%.
Saints are collaborating with the NFL to donate $1 million to the relief efforts to help the families of those victims. Benson says our community has experienced an unimaginable tragedy, and our collective hearts are broken as we mourn for the victims and survivors of the New Year's Day terror attack in New Orleans. The NFL Foundation matched Benson's and the Saints donation and added an additional $500,000 to bring the total up to $1 million.
Talk about the donation to the Tragedy Fund, why it was important to be there for this community.
Yeah, the GNOL, Greater New Orleans Fund, started a fund to give back to what they've labeled as the New Orleans, or the New Year's Eve New Orleans massacre, which just sounds tragic in every sense of the word. When you think about 15 lives being lost, 30-something people being injured, everybody feels aggrieved, and yet you want to help and you don't know how, where. I immediately, called my PR, Rebecca Otto, called, Mrs. Benson, or text Miss Benson. She immediately texted back, got me in touch with a couple people, talked to Greg Benzel. Like, how can we help? Like, you just want to help your city. Being in New Orleans, I went to bed at 10:30, woke up to learning about it just like everybody else did, and it's something that touches you. You figure, one of the first bodies that was identified was an 18-year-old girl, I believe, from Mississippi, and I couldn't even imagine having 3 girls myself. Can't even imagine what it's like to lose a family member to natural causes, let alone this. What I'm going to call a terrorist attack. So for all the afflicted families, all the families affected, all the friends that will never have their friends back from Bourbon, what should have been a joyous time celebrating New Year's rolling in 2025 ended up being a nightmare. So we just wanted to help. So this was one way, instead of just saying the prayers out or shouting, like, how do we get from this? You got to find a directive. In my mind, give them directly back to these families is how we get it done.
Sorry to take such a joyous turn to ask about it.
It's from media appreciation to, which had to be addressed. I sort of wanted to talk about it yesterday, but at the same time, I was still formulating how I wanted to address it. And how could I help? It's one thing to acknowledge it on a social media platform. Of course, you bring awareness to what happened. You want to bring, some sort of directive, and I didn't have that answer yet. So I had to formulate an opinion, formulate how, and go from there. This is my how right now.
Just as somebody who calls New Orleans home, has called New Orleans home forever, just like that. When something like this happens home, it feels different for you versus
absolutely.
When this sort of stuff happens.
Absolutely. Again, it's like, you can't control a calamity like a hurricane, right? You assume, like, you can sort of be forewarned it's coming in, and then you go from there. Something like this, again, everybody who wasn't on Bourbon went to sleep and woke up and this news hit. Everybody on Bourbon who was having a joyous time, whether with their friends, loved ones, whatever it is, celebrating the New Year's. How do you can't see yourself preventing this when you not putting fault on hand, but when you have police officers on every block, when you have what should be a safe night is not safe. It makes you nervous, makes you scared from big events, makes you want to stay your ass at home. There's a reason for the wife to tell you to stay your ass at home. There's to think about 60 lives being affected in some way or another. 15 of them never to breathe air again. How many families affected? How many friends affected? There's no rhyme or reason or like, oh, I saw you. This is how I could have prevented. There's none of that. So for you to wake up is exactly what it is. It's a calamity that became that is a tragedy. And somehow, some way, I'd like to take a moment to speak more than just football. I mean, when you talk about person to person, when you lose a life, it's something you can never get back. It's overly, the word is probably going to keep out. It's overly sad. It's overly tragic to think about how many people are going to be affected by this.
As scary as it is, like, is there an important part of like not being defined by it either, though? Like,
absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's New Orleans. New Orleans is probably the most resilient city you're going to get. From coming back from Katrina to Ida to the likes, this city knows how to bounce back. The city has, sometimes over this 14 years I've been here, has had some of the highest murder rates in America, and yet it's somehow bounced back and gotten from there. I mean, for as much as the South has a lot of good in it, as much as New Orleans does a lot of good for, it knows how to fight back. It knows how to come back, and somehow, some way, we'll come back from this as well.
We at Davis Sports Report send our deepest condolences. New Orleans is a city that we love to visit, and we feel horrible for those who have lost life, loved one, and those that were present and are now battling emotional difficulties. Cam Jordan mentioned that this could make you want to avoid big crowds and stay at home. Will this tragedy make you avoid large crowds, or will you continue living life as usual? Let us know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already.